Have you noticed that now we're living in a world where you read something or you see a post or a message and you think, was that really written or created by that person? Or was it done by AI? That's a very different feeling to what we're used to as humankind. And this is something that we have to come to terms with. And in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can actually think about how we show up in this environment. Any sort of research or creative work is now instantly being thought by individuals as, is this real in terms of, can I really trust who did this? And what was the effort and the actual drag that happened to make this work? So the deeper problem here is that it isn't really about AI, it's about trust. Because when we saw something previously, we knew that that meant effort and it meant output, which equals trust, because somebody actually put their blood, sweat and tears into creating it. Now, output equals uncertainty. So where does this show up? This is in presentations, it's in LinkedIn posts, it's even in books we read now. It's anything that we see that's been created either in print or in web or in any sort of digital format. The first question we think to ourselves is, was this done by a human or is it done by AI? Social media is flooded with AI now. There are so many AI accounts around models, around influencers that people still interact with and they still have feelings with and they still actually engage with, but the reality is they're not actually real people. It's actually quite crazy when you think about it. And what we've got to start to think about is, why are we still putting our attention and our time and our emotion and this back and forth into something that isn't real? Now, the science behind it is quite simple. The people that are actually behind making these AI accounts is because they're mimicking everything that they've seen before in human behavior. You know, whether that's dopamine hits from something that's engaging around videos, whether it's comedy, whether it's something that's shocking. And we've now really lost the connection between output and authorship, like who actually created what you're looking in front of you today. What happens when trust weakens? People start to second guess, authenticity becomes harder to prove, and relationships become, well, slightly less meaningful. And not just less meaningful, but perhaps more distant. And if you're not sure where something truly came from, it's sometimes that much harder to actually feel it and that authenticity. But the key thing is don't be afraid of AI. AI is not going away. But this is a change and it matters. What stands out now is how people think and how they show up in live environments. Why communities are more important than ever, because there's no filter or AI to hide upon. How they speak in person, how they interact behaviorally. That's the real relationships. That's how you really get to know a person and who they really are. How they respond to things, how they make you feel. All of these emotions, eye contact, body language, all of these, trigger points that you will associate with some sort of emotion or feeling or judgment towards a person are now going to be so much more important in real life than they ever were before previously. Because names on a piece of paper or words or letters that are in an email or some sort of digital format, you're never fully sure whether it was that person that's sending it to you that actually created it. Whereas actually what I'm doing now with you, whilst I still could be an AI video, but I promise you I'm not, you know that I'm talking to the camera here and this is my words and it's coming from me. But if I'm doing this in person on a stage and you're there, sitting there listening to me, you're 100% certain. And whilst when we're in touch with people in the live audience, it's always more authentic and it's more meaningful and it's easier to build a connection. It's even more important now in business, in personal life, in everything, that you do actually take that time to really create those human connections one-to-one. Because A, it keeps the consistency of those emotions, trust and authenticity of any sort of creative project or any sort of content you're creating. But more importantly, it allows you to have that filter without any shadow of a doubt between what is real and what isn't real. So now more than ever, actually, as I said before, that human-to-human interaction is important. But if you think about all the different channels now we have to communicate, not just with our work colleagues, but with our friends and even family, the quick WhatsApp, whether it's a quick text, whether it's a quick message on Instagram, all these ways are different channels to do quick communication or quick reactions to people's lives. But actually, whatever happens, just picking up the phone and having a conversation. I spoke to one of my friends the other day and it felt really strange, but 20 minutes later I said, we should do this more often, because actually we've covered so much more around catching up and getting to know each other better and what we've been doing over the last 6 months than we had, even though we were texting every day on WhatsApp or sharing silly memes or silly little jokes with each other. We've got into this false society now of thinking that by sharing constant digital channels with each other, that means we're staying connected, but actually we're not. You still need to make that effort, again, whether it's with colleagues, people outside of work, or even your family, to actually show up and give meaningful time and attention to these individuals, because that's where connections and where deep emotion is retained. And that's what keeps us real and what protects humankind. So use AI in many different areas, but don't substitute it for that real life engagement, because not only is it good for you and how you're perceived with other people, but for your own mental health and your own well-being, you will feel like you're living a more complete life still. We're getting so wrapped up in how productive and how quick and how efficient AI is making us, but it's also making us a little bit like zombies because we're not actually getting out there now. It's a bit like when COVID hit and we could just use Teams and Zooms meetings for everything rather than just making that effort to get on a train or get on a plane to see a client. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic invention because it allows us to cover so much more work in one day. However, you cannot substitute that face to face experience and that time and engagement and building chemistry. So, really think about how we find that balance when we do that. Because for me, that's why we're here. And that's the big meaning of life is really how can we make sure that we're always in a place where we're interacting with humans, because that's the greatest gift we get. It's relationships, experiences, and it's building that camaraderie as a human race.